The pictures of the Prime Minister's interaction with members of the diaspora right here. He is at the DuPont Hotel in Wilmington, in Delaware, where members of the diaspora have in fact been waiting for hours together to meet him.
होटल पहुंचने पर प्रधानमंत्री के स्वागत के लिए पहले से ही उपस्थित था प्रधानमंत्री के
We are so lucky to got the chance to meet him.
Yeah.
So we are so excited about it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we are so excited to hear and meet him, Modi ji. Even though that plan is not there, but he's make it happen for us. So I am really proud of Mr. Prime Minister Modi ji. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead. So, excited to see Mr. Modi. He's a great Prime Minister, probably one of the best we had since independence. We are very proud of him, and we wish him a very long life and same, all the best to India and the rest of the world. Thank you.
It was an amazing experience, and we were waiting for a long time to meet him. And we are part of the Indian community here, and we would like to welcome Narendra Modi, our Honorable Prime Minister, to have a good trip here. And he is the mark of prosperity and friendship, and we would like to continue that with India, right?
So seeing Narendra Modi here in Delaware, it was our privilege and one of the lifetime experience. So we are very happy to see him.
Excuse me. So the Prime Minister meeting with the members of the diaspora right here, taking selfies, shaking hands with them, greeting him. Listening to the reactions that are coming in. These are pictures of the Prime Minister interacting with the diaspora in Delaware. Of course, he's got an organized event as well in New York where he is going to be tomorrow. Gaurav continues to be with us. Gaurav, as always, and we've been talking about it, the Prime Minister extremely popular with the diaspora, be the US or any other country actually, where the members of the diaspora always welcome him. And this has never happened before, isn't it? It's only with Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Well, the scale with which it happens with Prime Minister
Certainly.
Narendra Modi, the frequency with which it happens with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and the number of countries it happens in. So right now, even here in Philadelphia, if you notice a number of people, Indian diaspora, they dressed in their traditional Indian best and they made a lot of paintings. Now, the diaspora to an extent knows that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is instantly drawn to pictures, to paintings. And one lady, for example, had painted a very beautifully Madhubani painting for the Prime Minister, and she asked him to autograph it. A youngster, a school kid, he'd actually made the Chandrayaan for Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And another lady of Indian origin, she done another painting with Bharat Mata Ki Jai, written very strong.
Yes. Gaurav, I'll just tell our viewers, these are pictures of women doing Garba right now. In fact, they had told Rohit that we've prepared a dance for the Prime Minister. And as he watches them, they are performing Garba. These are women from Gujarat. And these were the women. All right, Gaurav continues to be with us, even as we're staying with those pictures of the Prime Minister at the hotel, essentially, where an event, or rather a meeting was planned with members of the diaspora. Gaurav, you, of course, were telling us about the manner in which this in many ways is very unique for an Indian leader, an Indian Prime Minister, and the scale of which and the frequency with which it happens.
When I was in Russia, a lot of Russian women had dressed up in traditional Indian attire because they also learn whether it's Bharatnatyam or Kuchipudi or Odissi or various other forms of Indian art. Similarly, here in Delaware, you have a lot of Indian women and you have some American women who are learning Garba and who are there at Delaware, for Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and they're performing there. Indian women and Indian diaspora in large numbers, both at Delaware and then again in New York and New Jersey. As you know, many people do call New Jersey Little India, given the large number of Indian diaspora that lives in that part, of New York across the tunnel. In New Jersey, you have a lot of Indians, so they get there in large numbers. They perform. They keep Indian culture alive in the United States of America, and then they get a glimpse of it for the Prime Minister. Again, in Ukraine, the Indian diaspora performed a traditional Indian dance for the Prime Minister. You also see a lot of Indologists who come and meet the Prime Minister. He also makes it a point to meet those achievers, those super achievers, people of Indian origin who are doing extremely well in whatever country he goes to. He makes it a point to meet them and encourages them.
That's right, and the diaspora is important. You rightly said, Gaurav, that the Prime Minister has always said that they are the ambassadors of the country outside of India, isn't it?
They truly are. They are the human bridge. They are the ambassadors of India in those countries. And the fact that India is looked at with a lot of respect. What are Indians seen as anywhere in the world in today's day and age? That they're techies, they're very good in science and technology, that they're very intelligent, that they're very hardworking, they're very laborious. Compared to a lot of people from the neighborhood, India's neighborhood, who have a very bad reputation overseas. So Indians are always welcome. People from the neighborhood, India's neighborhood, may not be as welcome in several countries in the world. And that is because when Indians go and live in a country, they contribute very positively to their economy, to their society. They mingle very well and they never create trouble in those countries. And this is something that the Prime Minister has often spoken of when he goes to those countries, whether it's in the United Kingdom. And you're well aware, Sneha, that in his first tenure, we had a huge event in New York at the Madison Square Garden. Then another huge one in Australia, in England, in France, in various parts of the world, wherever the Prime Minister goes. And you remember in Australia, the Australian Prime Minister said that Modi is the boss. They're not used to having such crowds. For example, even the biggest crowd that they saw in Australia, bigger than even Bruce Springsteen, was when Prime Minister Narendra Modi got there. So he does galvanize the Indian diaspora. The diaspora is also very important, especially if you look at the kind of remittances that come from these countries, and especially West Asia, the Middle East. Those remittances are very important for India's economy. So that diaspora not only does very well in those countries, that diaspora is very important for the Indian economy. Also in terms of science and technology, in terms of sending that money back, in terms of getting that knowledge back to India, that diaspora plays a very critical role, and perhaps Prime Minister Narendra Modi understands that. And every time he interacts with them, he builds the India story. He builds India as an emerging world power story. And that's very heartening to hear across the world.
Well, absolutely. This is President Joe Biden's hometown in Delaware, where the Prime Minister is. We are expecting, of course, the event in New York, where there is an organized event for Prime Minister Narendra Modi, as there always is. That really throws up no surprises. But in Delaware, where there is a significant chunk of the Indian population there, like the Prime Minister has always indicated that they are the ambassadors really of the country. Many people say that these are the people, these Indians living outside of India are really the secret weapon of the Prime Minister, because he enjoys their trust. And not just the trust, but the love and the respect. And that, I think, is always on display, no matter where the Prime Minister goes. Gaurav, in the year 2015, when the Prime Minister was in China, where I was covering him, he was in President Xi's hometown in Xi'an. And one wouldn't expect Indians to be there, but they were, and in large numbers. So they, of course, welcomed him in Beijing, in Shanghai, but they also welcomed him in Xi'an. It's mind-boggling where Indians are, isn't it? There also is something that we need to talk about, but let's leave it at that for the moment. We'll talk about the diaspora and their presence just all over the world in a moment from now. But I want to talk a little about what is expected as far as the Prime Minister's meeting in the UN is concerned, where he's also going to be addressing the UNGA. Just talk to us a little about what that is going to, in fact, what one can expect from that, Gaurav.
So, Sneha, the UN address of the Prime Minister is very interesting. It's the summit of the future. How do you see this world emerge from the current crisis the world is in? And what is it that world powers can do together? Because the world is in turmoil in today's day and age. And what has the world seen? So first you saw a Cold War, and there were two blocks. You had the Soviet bloc, and then you had the NATO bloc. And then the Soviet bloc collapsed. But now you have Russia as a powerful country. You have the NATO as a very powerful bloc. And then you have China and Russia coming together. China is emerging again as a very powerful country. So the world is in flux. There's conflict between Russia and Ukraine. There's conflict between Israel and Hamas, and Israel and Hezbollah. And that conflict is impacting the entire world adversely, especially the Russia-Ukraine war, where oil prices went through the roof, where fuel wasn't available, gas wasn't available, food grain wasn't available, sunflower oil wasn't available. No, in this turmoil, what is it that the world can do? Not just America, not just Russia, not just China, but the world together. What can these countries do to navigate the world out of this turmoil? Point one, and point two, to ensure that the global south or the developing world is not ignored. Because, when you have a G7, they'll talk shop, and they'll only talk about what the rich European economies or the rich economies of the world in the United States, how do they come up and what do they do? It's all about them. But what about the developing world, which is actually, to a large extent, suffering the consequences of the actions of the developed world? So that is where India post G20 has emerged as a very strong voice of the developing world. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi articulates it, very, very strongly. He gets the world to sit back, listen, take notice, and then India hopes also take action. Now that food grain getting out of that Russia-Ukraine war, both Turkey and India played a very critical role to ensure that the global south wasn't adversely impacted, to get fertilizers out of Russia, to get food grain out of Ukraine, or to get oil out of Russia. Now look at the amount of pressure that was built on India not to buy that oil. And repeatedly that pressure was built on India. Do not buy Russian oil. Do not buy Russian oil. Should India have bought that expensive oil from the Middle East, as External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar repeatedly puts it? World prices are going up. Europe is taking so much of that oil, and they are jacking up prices. What should India do? Why should India suffer, or why should developing world suffer? That is why that cheap Russian oil brought relief not just to India, but once India, exported that oil once again to several countries of the world, it benefited those countries. So that's the point India is repeatedly making. Listen to the global south.
All right. Gaurav, be with us. I'm just going to come back to you in a moment from now to tell our viewers, and for the benefit of viewers who could have possibly just joined us at this point in time, we're getting you non-stop coverage of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's 3-day visit to the US. A few moments ago, he landed in Philadelphia. These are pictures on your screen of the Prime Minister meeting up with the diaspora. This, remember, is Prime Minister Narendra Modi's first visit to the US since he took oath for the third consecutive time. Soon after landing, he met members of the diaspora outside the Philadelphia airport and signed a few autographs. And later today, he's going to be holding talks with US President Joe Biden. That is on the agenda. Also will be attending the annual Quad Summit in Delaware, for which the Prime Minister is the bilateral, of course, is in the sidelines of this. The Prime Minister is also scheduled to hold separate bilateral meetings with the other Quad leaders, where discussions will be focusing on defense, technology and collaboration.
I don't think there is any other politician like him who has given his life and has made India up on this stage, made sure that India is respected and loved, and he's brought it to the forefront of the world. And I'm so blessed to be with him, to welcome him to Delaware.
Modi ji is great. He has brought golden age of India back in front of us, and this is a historical moment for us to cherish.
ये किताब की पूरी रिसर्च शिकागो में की थी मेरे दोस्त ने, ये संजीव कुमार जी हैं, और उन्होंने ये किताब बहुत ही डिटेल्ड किताब निकाली है ऑन द गुप्ता एम्पायर. मोदी जी ने ये 2018 में लॉन्च करी थी. ये सेकंड एडिशन वो आज साइन करके गए हैं, तो ये उनके सिग्नेचर हमने लिए. And we are so proud because this brings out the history of the Chandragupta and the entire empire of the Guptas, so the golden age of India.
मोदी का हार्दिक स्वागत करने के लिए यहाँ पे उपस्थित रहे हैं, और मोदी जी ने सबको बहुत ही रिस्पेक्टफुली हाथ मिला के बहुत ही अभिवादन दिया. उसके लिए हम उनके धन्यवाद प्राप्त करते हैं.
All right, is the members of the diaspora excited, happy to welcome Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Delaware, the home of President Joe Biden. In just some time from now, there will be a bilateral with President Joe Biden. The Prime Minister is on a 3-day visit to the United States to attend the Quad Summit. So what's the significance of this visit? The visit underscores strengthening of India-US bond, highlights technology, trade and defense collaboration in various sectors, promoting collaboration in the area of technology, especially in AI and cyber security, highlighting India-UC space collaboration as well, promoting joint efforts in combating climate change. The focus on geopolitical interest, especially the Indo-Pacific region, engagement with the Indian diaspora. Also engagement, like I said, with the diaspora, and that really is on the agenda, and that, of course, holds a great deal of significance when it comes to these visits of the Prime Minister. Geeta continues to be with us. Geeta, as far as India is concerned, it's 14 minutes past 9 for us. Give us a sense of what time is the bilateral with President Joe Biden, and what after that, once again, for our viewers?
Well, it's not so long from now that we will be seeing the bilateral, the Quad Summit that will take place, and it's the Quad Summit. The entire events for Prime Minister Narendra Modi will begin with the Quad Summit, followed by bilateral meetings on the sidelines of the Quad Summit with various with all the other 3 leaders. And while the Quad Summit is going to focus on, like you said, cybersecurity, technology, trade, and particularly resilient supply chains, there is going to be a lot more conversations on Chinese aggression, the wars, and how to move forward on bilateral relations when it comes to Japan, Australia, and the United States of America. There are elections that are going to be held in Japan, the elections that are going to be held in the United States of America. So consider this as one of the last meetings with these leaders, and we will have to see whether there's going to be continuity should Kamala Harris return, or whether there's going to be a new chapter should Trump return. Either way, India is in good stead when it comes to relations between the 2 countries, because no matter which leader or who comes to power in the United States of America, it's very clear, Sneha, that they want to engage India, that India is an important partner for the United States of America at this point in time.
Well, absolutely. We have pictures of the Prime Minister interacting with members of the diaspora. Of course, this was organized in Delaware. Geeta, the big event in New York, where I understand that there are going to be around 400 artists or so who would be performing. Just talk to us a little about that, because, you know, each time the Prime Minister steps out of the country, there are obviously huge concert-like events, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. This time around also, it's going to be a massive event. The first time around, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in the United States of America. There was one of the biggest diaspora events, and that was at Madison Square Gardens.
Yes.
This time it's going to be in Long Island. Again, a massive event of the Indian community. And also, Sneha, interestingly, it's not just the diaspora from New York that you'd see in at this event. There are many who travel far and wide just to come for the Indian community event of Prime Minister Modi. And you will be seeing that this time around as well. Although in Delaware, the women and the Indian diaspora that waited to welcome him at the airport and later at the hotel are very clearly from Delaware, from Biden's hometown, and were very, very happy to welcome him. So there's one, you see all these women and men who come dressed in their finery just to welcome Prime Minister Modi, and it's a fine display, in many ways, than one of Indian culture. They were dressed in Indian attire from various states, and also then performed Garba right outside the hotel.
Well, absolutely.
And now, again, at the Indian community event, it is going to be huge. There's massive number of people, and so much so that a lot of Indian community members of the Indian community have not been able to secure that ticket or pass to actually attend the event, because that's how full that entire area or arena is going to look like and be. So it's going to be a massive event. There are performances, there's going to be a lot of conversation, and Prime Minister Modi is going to yet again address the Indian community over there. He is also going to address, and that speech is going to be very important, the summit of the future. And that's, Neha, very important because that's where all the global leaders are going to come and talk about the issues that really have rattled the world, that have really taken on the world and have created many a disruption, whether it's the wars, the conflicts, the break in supply chains, all that and more. So, and of course, climate change and sustainability. So all that will be discussed. A significant speech will be delivered by Prime Minister Modi at the Summit for the Future.
All right. I'm just going to come back to you in a moment from now. Geeta, be with us. The Prime Minister has also just tweeted, and we're going to be putting that out for our viewers. Take a look at what the Prime Minister said on X or Twitter. The Indian community has distinguished itself in the USA, making a positive impact across diverse sectors. It's always a delight to interact with them. At around 9:30 p.m. India time on Sunday, 22nd of September, I will address the Modi and US program in New York City. So essentially giving out the details of that, also acknowledging their role. Let's celebrate, he says, the bonds that connect our nations. Gaurav continues to be with us for more on that. Gaurav, we've been talking about the role of the diaspora and the role essentially that they play in spreading the message of India outside of the country, in lobbying for India. Not just that, in just playing the role of ambassadors for India outside the country, isn't it?
They're a very important, section in the United States of America. And since you mentioned lobbying, if I may, there are some commentators in the United States of America who say that Indians are the new Jews in the United States of America. They impact US policy so effectively and to an extent that their financial clout is also increasing. And also the fact that Prime Minister Narendra Modi, whether it was, that shift when it was taking place from Barack Obama to Donald Trump, or from Donald Trump to Joe Biden, and now from Joe Biden to whoever comes, the Prime Minister or the Indian establishment, the Minister of External Affairs, makes sure that India is very well keyed in and genned up with whatever administration is taking over. India has a great equation with the Democrats and with the Republicans, and not just with the political leaders, but also with diplomats, with think tanks. India very extensively engages the United States of America, and also industry. Do keep in mind, Sneha, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is spending considerable time this time interacting with some of the top CEOs in the United States of America. And that CEO interaction is very strictly, about the new technology that India requires. In terms of India wants a lot of co-development, co-research and co-manufacturing in India. Artificial intelligence is one area where India has played a big role, or where India seeks to play a big role. When supply chains post-COVID were disrupted, and Geeta Mohan has been talking about it extensively, India has been talking about manufacturing in India, and there are many analysts who say, look at how several countries, if they're not leaving China completely, but they're doing China plus one, and they want to manufacture in India, and that is where Prime Minister Narendra Modi is seeking a lot of foreign investment.
All right.